Oh, so what you mean is when he used the word fighting with Jim Jordan, he wasn't talking about physical violence? Do you think Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection?
I would say absolutely yes.
What and how so? How did he engage in it?
By aiding and abetting it.
How?
I think in the Jack Smith indictments, I think it was probably in encouraging people to partake. It was probably in withholding National Guard assistance to the Capitol grounds.
So the Colorado case specifically says that inaction is not engagement. Specifically says that. So saying
inaction is not engagement, but
correct.
I mean, I'm sure it would depend on the type of inaction that we're talking about, right? If Trump was tasked with the responsibility of calling the National Guard and he enacted there, that's different than just like watching something happen.
No, that's
right.
No,
number
that's,
one, but also number two, probably just the speech on the 6th itself, I would argue aids and abets in the insurrection, and all of the calls to pressure and bully the state, all of the elected officials to overturn the election, and all of the attacks that he made against Michael Pence, saying that he can do it, and all of the calls to the crowd saying we have to fight like hell, we've got to hold Pence responsible, saying the election was rigged, knowingly, falsely providing that information over and over again, telling people that, yeah, I would say this easily counts as like aiding and abetting an insurrection.
It has nothing to do with aiding and abetting an insurrection, right? He's allowed to say all of those things. That's perfectly fine. He wasn't aware that they were going to commit acts of violence. He had no awareness whatsoever. He was allowed to think those things. He was allowed to say those things. You might
you're
think
not in conjunction with like another crime. No, you're not allowed to.
Absolutely. That's insurrection again entails a use of violence, force, or intimidation by numbers. So for him to have engaged in it, he would have had to known that they were going to commit an insurrection. For example,
he knew. For example, he was told multiple times that like.
Let me finish. So this would be no different than if you saw people say, I'm outraged at what happened to George Floyd. We need to take it to the streets. And then people took it to the streets and engaged in what we consider an insurrection. Would you say, oh, those people that said take it to the streets, if I could convince you that these actual BLM actions were tantamount to an insurrection, would you say, oh, yep, that means that all the politicians that said take it to the streets engaged in insurrection? Would you say that?
No, because I don't know if all the BLM marches even were insurrections, number one. And take it to the streets,
if they were,
I think is way too vague and way too broad to ever sound like you need to fight in order to like do violent acts. I think that can literally just be protesting.
Cool. Tell me what Trump said to tell people to fight and commit violent acts. Go ahead.
Sure. When Trump says, but I said something's wrong here and something is really wrong, it can never happen. And we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Yep. That politicians say fight like hell all the time, say we need to fight for our country. That's not a call to violence.
Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. We have to be so nice. We have to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people. We're going to have to fight much harder.
Keep going. Finish that quote.
This is all I quoted from this here.
Does he talk about McConnell?
He talks about him in other parts. For years, Democrats have gotten away with election fraud and weak Republicans, and that's what they are. There are so many weak Republicans. We have great ones. Jim Jordan and some of these guys, they're out there fighting. The House guys are fighting, but it's incredible. Many of the Republicans, I helped them get in. I helped them get elected. I helped Mitch get elected. He should talk to McConnell a lot of this, yeah?
Wait a minute. So he says Jim Jordan's fighting. So if he means by fighting literally picking up your fist and punching people, so he was saying Jim Jordan was literally punching people, correct?
No, when he says Jim Jordan is fighting, he means that Jim Jordan is assisting him with his coup in the House.
Oh,
when
so
Jim Jordan is trying to decertify the vote.
Oh, so what you mean is when he used the word fighting with Jim Jordan, he wasn't talking about physical violence?
For Jim Jordan, no, it doesn't sound like it.
But wait a minute, didn't you get that quote directly from the Colorado case?
No, I listened to the entire speech and I wrote down the quotes that I thought were surprising to me. Do you think that the people he's saying need to fight like hell can fight like Jim Jordan? Is he telling all of them to go to the House and become elected members of the House and vote?
I'm saying that your interpretation is absurd because we could see over and over politicians that have constantly said the need to fight for our country, the need to fight like hell, etc. And never once have we considered that them actual calling for physical violence. We all understand.
You know that when you call,
please let me finish. Never once have we called that sort of thing. Then you're saying no. Trust me. When Trump uses the word fight. He literally means physical violence. And then one of the very quotes you give talks about Jim Jordan, which it's easy to dispense with. He's clearly not talking about physical violence. When he's saying you need to fight for your country, it doesn't mean physical violence. He means it in the same way when AOC says fight for your country, the same way when Chuck Schumer says fight for your country. And you could bring up a litany of quotes from Democrats that have said this.
Do you think why is it that when he told them to fight like hell, why did they march down to the Capitol, riot, break into the building, and delay the official certification of the vote? Is it just a coincidence that happened?
Yes.
After he gave a speech?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The
Okay,
idea
right,
that the idea that because
give me final. Wait. Give me. Let's give me five. I gotta shout it out. Give me final wrap ups on this.
Okay.